Good morning, everybody. If we could please rise, we're going to start with the pledge and prayer this morning.
Let's pray. Lord, Heavenly Father, come to you with thankful hearts, Lord. We thank you for this country. We thank you for this day. We ask you to guide us now as we do the business for the good of the county, for the growth of the county. That you will help us make great decisions, so Lord, that you be proud of. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order this morning. And the first order of business we have is our approval of our agenda. I have been noticed that we would add one more thing in for project updates under item number 8. At the end, if everyone would please add JDC phosphates. Anything?
We also have, it was on a report from Denise Hamilton of Rapid Systems.
Under project updates?
Yes.
Any other additions to the agenda? If not, we're looking for a motion to approve. Do we have a second? John, was that you? Any other comment from board members? Any public comment? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
And we'll move on to the approval of minutes.
I'd just like to ask, on the energy Florida thing, that we have found out what the problem was there with that.
I got one communication from them, and they have not yet heard from the USDA on exactly what their decision-making process is.
Okay, they usually do that. They usually give you a reason and
I
everything.
don't ever been through that, but if we get an additional communication, I'll certainly advise the board.
Just curious, because I wasn't here last time.
Everyone's had a chance to review the minutes. We'll open for a motion to approve the minutes. Do we have a second? Any further comments? Any public comment? All those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, and we will move into re-election of officers. Mr. Evers?
Thought Mr. Lambert was doing
But you earn your $150 an hour.
that. Change order forthcoming. My understanding is that the positions of chair, vice chair, what other officer positions do we have? I don't recall.
There's an optional treasurer, but we have never filled it.
Never filled it. We have chair and vice chair.
Yes.
Correctly, each have indicated their willingness to continue to serve in that capacity.
Yes.
So, just want to open up the floor for nominations. We could do them as a slate, I suppose. Nominations for chair and vice chair. Move nominations, please.
We need to acknowledge the current chair and current vice chair, which is Jean, or Vanessa and Jean, and slate them if that's the pleasure of the board.
Second. And we have a motion for the nomination of the current chair and vice chair, accompanied by a motion that nomination cease. We have a second. All in favor? Madam Chair. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we will move on into adoption of our meeting schedule. Should be right after the minutes in your packet. It's basically just a continuation of our current meeting schedule, the second Tuesday of each month. Any comments from board members? If not, we'll open for a motion to approve. Dottie? Any further comments from board members? Any public comment? If not, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay, item 6, site tracker analytics. Ms. Christie?
In your packet on page 7, I made a report for what the site tracker does. Back in April, Kristen came before you to see if this was something you wanted to add to the website, and it was agreed to do so for 6 months. So we are at the 6 months, so we're just kind of giving you an update of exactly what it has done. On page 7, as you can see, we have visitor totals. There are 6,205 page views, and there was 1,483 unique visitors. And the unique visitors are first-time visitors to the website. You can see the popular pages, which ones were viewed the most. Our home page was viewed the most at 1,700 times, followed by the public record page, and the archives, and about the EDC staff. Those are the top 5 pages. The next part showed what people typed in on the search engines to find our website. The majority of them, they knew our website, so they typed that in, and then they searched for the IDA, Hardy County Economic Development, Hardy Economic Development, and then for Hardy County Economic Development Council. And then next to that, you can see the top geographic visitor locations. 969 of them were from Palatka, Florida, followed by Tallahassee, Huron-Wauchula, Naples, and Tampa.
Is there any way of figuring out who Palatka was calling?
Well, the thing that's on the screen, I think that might help a little when we get to it. That, I believe, is the first-time visitors, and it was a lot of them. We can kind of go through it, and it shows where they're from, I believe. And then the last part on page 7, it just shows the referring websites. The majority of our referrals are from the Florida Virtual Entrepreneur Center, followed by the Hardy County website. I'm not exactly sure what number 3 is. And then a lot of referrals are from our own website and Wake Up Party and test some referrals. This report that I have pulled up, if you can see it, this first column shows IP addresses, so we can see where the people were pulling us up from. It's majority companies. You can see like Amazon Technologies, AT&T, I mean all the way down. We have quite a bit. second one shows how many pages they viewed from our website. Children and family right here viewed us 171 times. Tells us what day and time they visited, how they got to our website. Their own personal website, where they're located, city, region, so they're from all over the US. Let's see. What country they're in, and their telephone number if we would like to contact them, their revenue source, employees, and then what industry they're in. So we were coming to you today to see if this is something, that you guys would like to keep doing and possibly get leads from and pursue them to come to Hardy County.
So this was the part that we debated on whether or not we wanted to do that on an ongoing basis, but we decided to try it. And you know what the ongoing cost is going to be?
I haven't heard from the guy Joel who does this, but it was $300 for the 6 months trial period.
I mean, because that's a lot of, it's a lot more information than I expected to get from it.
Yeah.
My recommendation is to do it 6 more months so we can gain a little more information on exactly how to use it.
And I'll get the price from him, and then if it's something we decide to do, I'll get what the yearly price is from him and come back next month and let you know.
There is so much information. We have staff of 5 calling these people, like, you just saw you on our website, or you interested. There's a lot. I wish I had this kind of lead for that.
Well, I would think they would call us after they looked at it. Have we had any traffic for the people interested?
If it was from there, they didn't
Okay.
say.
I think we should extend it for another 6 months.
Is that a motion?
I'll make it a motion that we extend it for the next 6 months.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and second to continue the site tracker analytics. Do we have any other discussion from the board? Any public comment? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Chris, would it be possible is this scannable and emailable to us, this data out here?
Yeah, I can do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, very good. We'll move.
Could you, I was going to suggest you post that on the website.
I was gonna print it, but it was very large, so I didn't, that's why.
You may talk to them and see if they can put a link to print it or to view it from the website.
Okay, we will, thank you, Christy. Oh, yes.
Do anything to follow up with these people?
We will, Mike. A lot of it, I believe, is probably other governments that are looking. Some of it is looking at our broadband program. Some of it is looking at public records. And
I understand that, but if somebody went through there, go get these leads, whether it's
Well,
a form letter, or a telephone call.
our intention had been for Kristen to do that, but she's no longer with us, so we will be following up on it. That's why we want to do it 6 more months.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, thank you. And we will move into EDA grant award approvals.
Sarah?
Did we vote on that? We did.
Yes.
I can't even remember.
Good morning. You have the grant award agreements in front of you for the projects that we took before the Economic Development Authority for funding. We were approved. Thank you, ma'am. Oh, you don't have them in front of you, I'm sorry. We have 4 new grant award agreements that have come to our office for review. We have been putting in project descriptions for each of those agreements that will be tied to the agreement and lay out exactly how that grant, the stipulations of funding for that. So we have been doing that and have sent those back over to the county manager's office for their review. Once they have given their final approval on the project descriptions and the entire document, we need to get the chair to sign those agreements. So today, we're really bringing them before you as an acknowledgement that we do have the contracts in front of us and that we would like to request authorization to have the chair sign those agreements once they have been finally approved.
Any questions or comments from board members?
Yes.
Does Ken look at those contracts?
He did briefly actually yesterday in our office, and that kind of brings me to another point that I wanted to mention that Christy reminded me. One of the grant award agreements is for the Economic Development Council funding that we have received over the past 3 years to supplement our budget and kind of take some of that burden off of the county commission and general revenue. That particular grant award agreement, the EDA board would like us to kind of fine tune that project description and get a little bit more detailed in what we put in that description. So that's something that we actually were discussing with Ken yesterday and have been discussing in our office. Bill and myself and Christy and others have been trying to come up with a better project description that gives a little bit more detail into what the EDC staff does that would necessitate the need for that funding. So that's something that we have not finalized yet, that we are in the process of still fine tuning, and we really want to kind of get some more detail from the EDA members as to what they would like to see that description look like. So that is one that is still kind of in the process of being done.
I think that prior to signing any of these contracts, Ken would review them in total.
Yes.
After the county office gets their blessing on it, to make sure that the types of things that we need to compliance with we are.
Yes, sir. And I'm not sure, I don't know, Ken, do you review those for, on behalf of the EDA anyway, before they're signed?
The answer is sometimes, if they're sent over, and typically what has happened is, correct me if I'm mistaken, Sarah, the project description is the real paragraph that varies from agreement to agreement. These things have really been done in the form of a template type agreement. And then the project description is where the deliverables and the description of where the money's going, all that appear. And you know, at least historically, they have just pulled in the project description from the application.
Correct.
To the agreement.
Yes.
And I don't know how many of them I reviewed, but Jim, I can tell you, I have not reviewed every single one of them that's been entered into. It seems like it's kind of a case-by-case thing when they get sent to me because there's a question of some kind, but I haven't looked at all of these. We did discuss yesterday, Sarah and I were talking about the project description for the EDC admin grant money because that was an issue that the EDA discussed in some depth at their meeting. So I'll be glad to look at them, but it's really the project description portion is where the deliverables and the project goals, objectives, all those things appear. So
realistically, the only time that I'm just going to interpolate what you're saying here, it's probably wrong, but the time that you maybe review these things would be if there were some changes made at the county level to come back. Or is that rare?
You know, Jim, I can't recall how often it occurs. It does. I mean, every once in a while I get, either when I'm over in Lex's office, Sandy hands me a copy and says, please look at that. This changed as a result of the discussion that occurred in the board meeting. You know, typically it comes to me in a draft form, whether it's handwritten, and take a look at this while I'm over at Lex's office anyway. I do, sometimes it's by email. But I can tell you, I know I have not reviewed all of the contracts in the past. It's typically done on request. I mean, that's the way my office operates. They request something and I respond to it, since I'm not a staff employee.
And just give you a little idea of what the contracts actually look like. They are boilerplate documents for every grant. The differences come in on the first page. The funding amount shows up, so that would be different per project. But then from there, the information in the agreement is the same across the board for every grant that's awarded by the EDA. And then, as Ken said, once you get to the back, you then have a project description that's laid out for each project that's been funded. And again, that is where the deliverables come in. And we write those up when we turn in the application before we even get funding. And so those descriptions are normally satisfactory, that they can just be taken from the application directly into the grant award agreement. We might have to make a few changes depending on if the EDA decides to do something a little bit different with funding, but those do go into the application, and so that's where the differences kind of come in.
Let me add a couple of points of clarification. In this cycle, there is an entirely new grant for spec building. We gave up the railroad spur money, and rather than transfer that, they ended up funding us with an entirely new grant. So that project description for a spec building is a generic spec building description. The Florican contract was modified to increase the EDA's contribution by $500,000. So that description will be simply an increase of $500,000 for lots 15 and 16?
16 and 17.
16 and 17, sorry. The water sewer corridor grant, we cleaned it up. No, we did not. They added some money to that grant. So it's one that's been running for several years because we had outstanding invoices and we could not close it out, according to the clerk. So that money has been increased by the EDA. The EDC funding simply involves coming back and providing clarification to the EDA on exactly what the EDC is doing relative to their supplementary funding to the BOCC. And the wastewater treatment money is an entirely new grant. We closed out the old one, which was combined with the Sheriff's Command Center, so there's a new project description for that. I believe that's all of them. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So those project descriptions are, once they're done, they will reflect what I just told you, and what we're seeking is permission for Vanessa to execute those documents, to go back before the EDA in their November meeting. Otherwise, we can bounce this back and forth forever.
What are the grant names? Have we got a list on them?
There's a spec building for lot 13, spec building for lots 16 and 17, the corridor grant award agreement, EDC funding, and wastewater treatment, or pre-treatment.
And the incubator.
Yes, and the incubator. That one is also an increase in funding, or is the first, it's a second round of funding. The first one is going to run until it's exhausted, and then there'll be a new grant
Correct.
for the incubator.
For the new cycles funding.
Okay, I got some questions, because now's the time.
Yes.
I think I'd like to address these questions to Ken. I think he'd be the proper one to do this too. I think you pretty well answered the first one I got, is as the attorney of the EDA and the IDA, do you look over all the EDA grant requests? And I guess the answer was sometimes.
On a case-by-case basis, so when they ask, it should be done.
Okay. When did you first see Alden Bloom's grant request?
I don't know that I did.
Okay. Did you make any presentations to the EDA, the OCC, or the cities?
don't recall.
Okay, I know, I,
I don't remember if she was part of those presentations.
I mean, I can answer that question if you'd like.
okay, give it a shot.
Already? Autumn did have an application that was a part of the entire incubator application that was submitted to the EDA. It was done the same exact way as it was done the first year cycle. We had an incubator application that included applications from two tenants, being Peace River Paddle Sports and Peace River Bees. That project was funded as a whole, with funding going to the IDA as the administrator of that grant, with the separate budgets of those two separate companies included in that grant. For this year's funding, we did the same template. We created an overall incubator budget that encompassed the needs for the facility itself, the cost to run the facility, the cost of the equipment and retrofitting of the building, and overhead for staff. Also included in that were separate budget requests for this year, 3 applicants. 2 being the same as the last year, Peace River Paddle Sports and Peace River Bees, and then an additional application in this cycle for Stream to Sea, which was Autumn's application.
Okay,
So that
I'll ask you
application-
the question then. Did she make any presentations to the EDA, the BOCC, or the cities?
I was getting there.
Okay, I'm
So-
sorry.
When it came time for presentation to the EDA board, Autumn was a part of that presentation. She presented.
She
with-
did?
Yes.
Okay, I was there, I don't remember that. Okay, go ahead.
At the time of funding,
When everybody got up, made their presentations on that particular date, and I'm not sure what date it
the
was.
first presentation, she herself was not presenting. I presented the entire
Well,
application.
why didn't she do it then?
Because she had some confidentiality issues.
Oh, so now we're getting the grants that's confidential, so we can put in a grant that's confidential and get it from the EDA?
Sure.
Oh, okay, all right. I wasn't aware of that. So anybody can go to the EDA or send a representative and say, this person wants $600,000, but it's confidential, we're not gonna tell you who it is, and they'll just give them the money?
I don't represent the EDA, so you probably have to ask them that
Oh,
question.
well, I probably will. Let me move on. I'll ask Ken, what does the EDA rules say about grant request presentations?
I don't believe presentations are required.
You're not.
The applicants are given that opportunity, but it's not required under the rules of the statute.
And I have been to many presentations where not every applicant has made a presentation to the board, but they are still up for funding. It is not required.
We have had, Donald, a number of applicants that chose, for whatever reason, to not make presentations to the cities. I can recall one in particular that I could do by name. It was an assisted living facility, and the representative was a fellow named Ed Pontier. And they came down and they were talking about locating out here just west of First Baptist Church at one time, and another time they had looked at a location that was downtown, and I don't think they ever presented to any of the cities. And that was just their option, because they were coming from out of state and they just didn't want to devote the resources, I suppose, to those presentations.
Well, I can understand the cities, but I was at the EDA and I was at the BOCC presentations. I just don't recall her being there. But I could be wrong. We can always go back and look. When did the EDA first see the grant request information for this project?
Applications are due May 15th, May 31st.
Okay, so she turned one in May 15th.
We turned it in prior to May 31st
Okay, in her name.
in the incubator application.
Oh,
with her
so it
special
was confidential at that time?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Well, when did the EDA first find out who this confidential grant was for?
In September.
In September. That's the month that the money was voted on.
Yes.
So probably the morning that they voted, they got the information, the 15th probably. Could that be correct?
They would have gotten it on the 11th and then had time to look at it prior to the 15th meeting.
Okay, and it wasn't made public or anything about this grant or anything? You're
Um,
aware of?
I'm sure it was public information. It was at the EDA, at the county manager's office, under the guise of the EDA, which is the Sunshine Board. So yes, it's public information.
Well, if somebody would have known to go look for it. Yeah, but nobody knew about it, okay. Okay, this board, the IDA board, voted on the list of projects to present to the EDA. Was her request on this list that we voted for as a board? I mean, not as confidential now, but as a name.
No, it was included.
It was,
the
it was
incubator
included in the confidential part of it.
It was included in the
Okay.
incubator application as a whole.
Yeah, and nobody really knew that it was part of it.
You knew-
Well, some of you may have, but I know I didn't.
You knew that there was a project
Yes.
included in that application.
Yes,
that was
confidential.
Confidential,
Confidential, yeah.
but you
Okay.
knew it was in there.
I knew there was a confidential one in there, but I did not know who it was.
You asked if it was included in there.
Yeah, I know it was included, but I mean, I said as name, as the name.
No,
Okay, okay. Will her project compete against the Cantus?
absolutely not.
Okay, hers is skincare or something, and so is theirs, isn't it?
Completely different.
Completely different, okay, okay. And I guess the name of her company is Spring to Sea or something?
Correct.
Okay. Now, I think the address of the incubator is 897 South Sixth or something?
Correct.
All right. Do we have a lease with it?
Do we have a lease
Mm-hmm.
with her?
Yeah, with this business?
We
Are
don't
we
have
going
a
to have a
lease.
lease with it?
We will.
We will have a lease.
We will have lease and contracts with every tenant that is in the incubator.
Okay, but none of them's really going to pay anything, but we just have a lease, right?
They will pay.
They will, okay, okay. Has she been vetted?
Well, she's not being funded by the IDA, so that would be an
EDA.
EDA.
So it's up to the EDA to vet them if they want to?
Yes.
I would think so. They're the ones providing funding.
Okay, when this money comes to us, then we're providing funding.
Under a contract through the EDA. The EDA awards the funding.
Okay, because I know a few months ago, Bill said that nobody else would get any money from us without being vetted.
They're not getting money from the IDA. None of this money is
Well,
coming
once
out of
it
the
comes to
IDA
us, then
revenues.
it's our money.
No.
No,
It is under a contract, which is the grant award agreements that I just went over. Everything in this document right here spells out how that money is to be spent and who it is to be spent to.
Okay.
And there are budgets
Okay.
that dictate how that money is to be spent and what it's to be spent on.
Okay.
Donald, if we can go through the next item on the agenda, we have a full presentation related to the incubator that may clarify some of these questions for you.
Well, I'm about through. And her grant was awarded September the 15th at the EDA, right?
Yes, it was.
Okay. I guess this is probably my last question here. I have a document here from the Florida Department of State Division of Corporation where she wasn't incorporated until 9/23/2014. Now that's, 8 days after she got the grant award? Is this another life sync? I mean, she was awarded the money, and then after she got the money, she filed for registration as a corporation. Huh? I can't hear you.
She has not received any money.
She has been awarded $600,000.
She hasn't got it.
Well, neither did LifeSync, but they got the money later after they incorporated.
That's the point too.
Yeah, well, that's against the law, isn't it? It is against the law, Ken, or not?
No.
It's not. Okay.
No, I would tell you, it's not
On
uncommon.
track then.
It's not uncommon in the business world for there to be single-purpose entities. I mean, the days of 30 years ago where someone formed a company and they did everything they do out of it. So if they're in the dairy business and the beef cattle business and the citrus business,
People don't have family company Inc. that owns everything they do anymore. People go out because it's become so cheap and inexpensive to do, create single-purpose entities, we refer to them as, for liability purposes, to bust up the liability. So they run their dairy out of this company and their beef cattle out of this one, and the grove out of this one, and it separates the liability. So my guess is any of these applicants, at the point that they're submitting their application, you're not evaluating the corporate entity at that point. You're really looking at the principle and the idea. And if you like the principle and you like the idea, then they head down the road of forming their company, which, it doesn't surprise me in the least that we get startup companies. The real test when you're looking at the application is a test of the principle. Who are they? Where do they come from? What's their experience? What do they bring to the table? Those type of questions. So the fact that they then go form a startup company to accomplish that single purpose doesn't surprise me in the least.
Well, why was it kept confidential from everybody then? I mean, why was this thing hid under the rug until the last minute? I mean, there's got to be a reason.
I can tell you, Donald, I learned about it when you guys did. I mean, I didn't know about Autumn's involvement until very, very late in the game. So I'm not the right person to ask that question.
Okay. Well, I think we need to send this one back to the EDA. I think that they dumped this one on us, and this board's going to take the heat for this. That's my point of this whole thing. I think they knew the process was flawed, in my opinion, and they dumped it on this board, and now we can take the heat for it. And believe me, we will.
I missed a couple of meetings, so I'm not sure exactly, but what
Can't hear you.
are you talking about? I mean, why do you?
They were given $600,000, and then after they got the money, then they incorporated.
Did Ken not just explain that?
Well, LifeSync did the same thing. Is there a lot of heat about LifeSync right now? Yes.
But the amount of LifeSync is.
Well, $600,000 is a lot of money. I mean, I think it could have been done out in the open and they wouldn't have this problem.
But did Sarah not say that the office did know about?
Yeah, but this board didn't. And we're the ones that's got to vote on this stuff. I'm going to tell you something. If you don't think that your vote on this board that you're going to have to account for, you better think about that.
I fully understand.
Okay. I guess I'm done with that one.
Let me just make one comment. I might get put on probation, but everybody knows who Autumn is. Even though her project that was incorporated into this incubator application was kept confidential for reasons that Autumn herself had, everyone knows Autumn. When the project came to light, and let me remind you that every presentation that I made before the cities, the BOCC, and the EDA board, I made it very clear that the applicant who was under confidentiality, once they came out, the board would have no reservations in funding that project. This is a woman who came to Hardy County years ago, was recruited by one of our own IDA board members to come here. She was the first tenant in the park. She built a business at a very young age to a successful end, and then turned around and sold that company to a nationally traded entity who is now in our Commerce Park as well, has purchased 2 buildings and 2 lots and is expanding. Now, I want to ask this board, why in the world would we continue to sit up here and berate applicants that come before us for funding who want to bring jobs to this community? And this is a woman who has already proven herself. If I were her, I would turn around and say, you know what, I'm out of here. And people are going to continue to do that if we have this attitude.
Let me ask you something else. I think she addressed this, but I didn't really understand her answer. at the last EDA meeting. On December the 8th, 2009, of the minutes of this board, she went before the board to ask the board to satisfy a performance-based mortgage contingent upon expansion. And the board approved that. Was the expansion done? And where was the expansion done and when and all that information?
To my knowledge, the reason that that was satisfied was because in her original contract, she had to create X number of jobs. She far exceeded that number that she was required.
The word in the minute says upon expansion. Does the expansion, is that what you're talking about, jobs or expanding the business?
Jobs.
So you're gonna say that it meant jobs and not the expansion of the business. That's what your testimony is, or whatever it is?
I was not involved in that contract.
Well, how can you say what it is then, Sarah?
I'm not sure why we're debating a decision that the board made in 2009 today. I mean,
That's because I
obviously,
want to.
at that time, they would have had the
That's the reason
opportunity to
why.
have that debate,
Okay.
and they decided to settle the performance-based note.
Yeah, but I just was curious. I'm just curious. And you're flirting around it, so that's okay.
I'm not flirting with anything. I don't have any idea what you're talking about.
I don't know, I don't know.
Well, I don't either. I'm just asking the question, and she's getting mad at me, and I think Mike Thompson's gonna get into the middle of it now, and Bill don't like it.
Donald, I don't recall, and I don't know that it matters whether it's jobs or expansion of business, because I think both occurred. I mean, with the sale to Nutraceutical Corp., the business expanded.
Yeah, but that wasn't her. She didn't expand.
I don't recall what was presented to the board. It may have been discussed, I don't know. I'm sure there's a tape of it somewhere.
Well, I guess, I say there's a history here, is what I'm looking at.
Whether it's jobs or whether it's expansion of the footprint and whatever in the commerce part, I guess the tape will tell.
Okay, so we're moving on. Donald's right, there is a history of Autumn Bloom in our community, and, you know, Autumn, I think you've done a fantastic job of creating jobs in Hardy County and increasing business, and we appreciate your partnership with us. So we're going to move on. We
I'd
need
like to take that a little step forward further. Autumn, I apologize for the conversation that's been going on this morning. I don't know what's got into the other end of the desk, but we apologize. I personally do. I'm sorry.
I do not apologize for looking into things that concern me.
I
know as a commissioner, they just don't look into things like they ought to, but I, on this board, if I think something needs to be looked at, I'm going to bring it up, whether Commissioner Thompson likes it or not.
That's fine. I would like to say, Mr. Samuels, if this is the attitude that you're going to bring to this board every meeting, then your days on this board are numbered. Okay?
Ooh.
Everything that I possibly can.
Right.
Yes, sir. Absolutely it is.
Oh, I understand that, Commissioner. I realize my days are numbered.
If you want to participate and try to move this board in a forward direction, just like every other member of this board, then you're welcome to stay. If you're not, then I'm going to do what I can to remove you. Now, you need to understand that.
So I'm supposed to come here
You do.
and not ask any question. I'm here to be a yes man. Is that what you're saying?
You are able to ask whatever questions you want.
Well, you're saying I don't?
Nope, that's not what I said. I said if you're not willing to participate and move this board in a positive direction, you can't stay here.
Well, why don't you have me removed, Commissioner? Why don't you get a lawyer and spend $10,000 and get rid of it?
All right, we're
I'll
going
get
to.
started on it this afternoon.
We're going to move ahead. So I think that the issue at this time is having authorization for the chair to sign the contracts.
Correct.
Do we have a motion for the chair to sign the contracts?
So moved.
Do we have a second? John, was that you? Any further discussion on the EDA contracts from board members? Any public comment? If not, all those in favor? Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. So let's take about a 5-minute break before we move into project updates.